During the Vietnam War, the U.S. Navy put out bids for a hand calculator Navy pilots could have. So when they do a bombing run, their bombs will land directly on a target, and they could put in calculations in this, hit this thing, and it would say what they have to do. Okay? Well, the Vietnam War, they didn't develop one until after the Vietnam War. The Navy dropped the contract, said we don't need it anymore. And then TI said, well, what are we going to do with all this research? And they said, well, let's finish the research and see what we can do with it. $100 million later, they did something with it, and they produced a TI-30. Now, what was a TI-30? It could add, it could subtract, multiply, divide, and it had pi. Right. Another one. Well, okay. That's great. And they sold. I had one for $50. It was pretty cheap. And did I use it? Oh, yes. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Blah, 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 blah. And I got an answer. Wow, that's good. My father looked at it and says, throw it away. Use your brain. But Dad, this is a lot easier. Throw it away. Use your brain. Do it the old-fashioned way. Well, the next model they had is one of these. This is a great engineering, if you're into engineering, architect, chemical. You're going to be a chemical engineer. You're going to be other type of engineer. This was great, and it was great. It could do wing, ding, and everything else, and it had all the little buttons, and you could have it on and off. Let's see, is this on, off? My God, it is. It's still live. Good long battery in it. Yeah. But, okay, this blinked and everything else. It did everything you need to do. Second, third, that thing, clear. Wow. And it was the most advanced scientific little machine around. And it replaced everything else. But I can guarantee you one thing. It replaced the old-fashioned adding machines. Just remember those? Big, heavy metal. They looked like a IBM Selector typewriter, half the size, big and heavy, and people used to do this. They sold these. Then they sold one thing like this. It has a little desk one. You press in the buttons. You hit add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and it pops out the numbers. A little more advanced one had a little roll of paper. So you had something hard on that thing. And they sold, and they sold, and you better know, every accountant wanted one. Every engineer wanted one of these, which is good. But this is a TI. Now this is a little bit more. It gives you a graphics out there. I knew a guy, I took a chemistry course, and he had something like this. Very similar, but made for chemistry. Okay, you put in your formula up here, you press enter, and it gave a readout of what of the chemicals. You mix these chemicals, in organic chemistry, you mix it together, and it gave out a readout. And we were taking a chemistry class together, and he got A's on his test. A few years later, I saw him. I belong to the American Chemical Society. A few years later, I saw him, and he says, that little calculator, do you allow your students to use those things? He says, no way. No way am I going to allow them to use one of those. Now, I wish I had one of these when I took my GRE test, Graduate Record Examination test. I wish I had one of these things, but they never allowed a calculator in there. Not even a TI-30. Nuts. So instead of getting blah, 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 I would have gotten blah, blah, blah as engineering school. That would have been great. Okay. Fast forward. Well, why am I talking about this? Let's go further on down the line. Somewhere down the line, they gave out a little calculator, little calculate there, and you put in the word, like I said, yes, and it would read out in Spanish, in Russian, in Korean, or something like that, basically letters. Russian? No, I don't think Russian. Italian, Western European languages. Okay, right. It would read out that way. It was great. Okay, blah blah blah. A couple years later, the next one that came along, you put the word yes in there. Type the word yes in there. You hit enter, and the word comes out in Spanish, sí, we, in German, and English. Well, British English, and that it was beautiful. That thing, and that was just the letter thing. The next one, yes, the next one was voice. You put in yes, voice. Then the one after that was you spoke into it, hit enter, and you get the thing in German. Where's the food stand? And you hit enter, and the thing speaks out that way. Now, that's great. That's me going over there and speaking German or French or Italian, Spanish over there. The newer ones out today are like that. Okay. I speak English into it. I hit that. It goes into, say, Japanese. Yes, Japanese. And the Japanese on the other side, speaks into it. And I ask where my directions for a hotel or restaurant or something is. That person speaks in it. I hit that button, and I get it back in English. Beautiful. Okay. Now, you need to go a little bit further. Google Brad is doing this. As I said, speaker of tongues is this. They're teaching Google Brad all the languages all the dictionaries on the planet in all these 1,000 different language and dialects. What I mean by dialects, India has 300 dialects to their Hindu language. Okay. So you understand that. And Google Brad is learning all that. Now, Google Brad is learning a lot more than that. But so far, it's you type in your question in Chinese, and it gives you back an answer in Chinese. Hello, goodbye, that thing. Does China have something like that? Yes, and other countries have something like that. And they could do writing for you. Yes, it can do it can do all this stuff. But somewhere down the line, it's going to respond with voice. You talk into something like this, and it comes back with in voice and a speaker in the proper language of, say, Spanish. It's great. It's going to go, they said they're going to go a little bit further than that. It's going to try to give you a tone, a pleasant tone. It's going to be listening to your tone and your voice and figure out what age is appropriate, that thing. If you start using four-letter words, it tells you goodbye. If you wanted to make a bomb, goodbye. If you want tell you how to seduce your girlfriend, I don't think so. And it was, well, hey, this is a home cooking show. Well, it'll tell you how to cook your turkey. Very sophisticated. Now you remember, this stuff is going into terabytes of instructions. Now what's the next little thing? They're going to be trying to figure out if you're a 5-year-old on the computer or a 25-year-old on the computer, and they want to do is that thing. Now understand what they're looking at when they're talking to you. Well, they're talking to me via this laptop. They're looking at the IP address that's tied into this location. So if I'm sitting at home and I bring up an IP address, which I can do, they're looking at me at that IP address. Eventually, it's going to be visual, a face, right? Yes. Then they will look at me at this IP in this thing. Now what happens if my sister comes over here using this thing to call Google Brad, and Google Brad says, you don't look like me. You don't look like Richard. You don't look like Richard. Who are you? Well, my sister would say, I'm his sister. Oh, now at this location IP address, they will see Richard and my sister Judy. Right, Judy? Judy. And if my cat comes up here and says meow, it's going to be parked out. No, that's great. That's a few years down the line. First voice, then visual. And you got to remember, Brad is looking into all transcripts on movies, TV series, PBS NewsHour, 60 Minute. Right. And it goes by that thing. And he's also looking at what happened when people are using their brain to move their arms or their legs. And it's nice. They have electrodes into the brain. That's an old-fashioned way. They most likely will have a cup on here where it will move the arms and the legs tied off to a computer that's on the belt. Possibly that's going to be like that. Is that person a robot? In a sense, it's a robot, in a sense, it's not. But that thing, well, that's where we're heading for. And hey, it still can add to 1, subtract to 0. We got to be frightened of that. No, just don't let it play with matches. That's all.